Las vocales. En español tenemos 5 vocales, A, E, I, O, U. And you might say to yourself, well, those are the vowels that we have in English too. We only have 5. That's true, we have 5 written vowels, but we have many ways to pronounce those vowels depending on where they occur in a word. In Spanish, it's easy. There's only one sound that can happen anytime you see those vowels. So if you see the letter A, it can only be the sound A, no matter what, no matter where it happens in a word. If you see the letter I, it can only be the sound E, no matter where it occurs in a word. This is very different than English, and those of you who took the sociolinguistics class probably remember what a nightmare English vowels can be. But in Spanish, in a way it's easy, and in a way it's difficult. It's easy because there are just 5 sounds, and you don't have to decide what sound a particular vowel makes depending on where it occurs in the word. It's simply A, E, I, O, U. It never changes. What's not easy is for most of us English speakers, even though it seems like it would be easier to just have 5 vowels rather than our 13, 14 different ways to pronounce vowels in English, sometimes we get interference from English when we're trying to do the Spanish. So as easy as it sounds in theory to just have 5 sounds, sometimes our English can get in the way. I'm going to be doing this presentation partly in Spanish and partly in English. One reason, the main reason, is because I'm really concentrating on the particular difficulties that English speakers can have when they try to memorize the pronunciation, the correct pronunciation of Spanish vowels. So a little bit of Spanish and a little bit of English. Empezamos con la definición de vocal. Una vocal. En una vocal no hay impedimento del aire, no hay fricción. En las consonantes tenemos mucho impedimento. Por ejemplo, tenemos sonidos oclusivos cuando el aire para completamente, o tenemos sonidos africados, la combinación de un sonido oclusivo y un sonido fricativo. Pero en las vocales, más o menos, el aire sale de la boca libremente, sin fricción. Pero hay un tipo de modificación porque tenemos estas 5 vocales distintas en español, A, E, I, O, U. So there's got to be some kind of a modification going on in your mouth to have 5 different sounds. We're not going to get into the details of how that happens, for example, lip rounding, or how high up in the mouth your tongue is for each vowel. We're just going to say, modificamos las vocales con la boca y la lengua. Y como dije, las vocales del inglés son más complicadas. Una cosa interesante para mí, in fact, I'll just say this, when I was taking a graduate class in phonetics, for some reason, this just was the most interesting thing I'd heard in a long time. And people who aren't language geeks will think that's really silly, but I thought it was really cool. But here's the deal. En inglés, los dialectos se distinguen principalmente por las vocales. So when you think about different dialects of English, how people speak in Erie compared to how they speak in Texas, how they speak in North Dakota, how they speak in Southern California, how they speak in New England, and even other dialects across the world, like British English or Australian English. Normally, what separates these dialects is how we pronounce our vowels. The word college, and I keep referring to those of you who took the sociolinguistics, but this is easy to understand for anybody. The word college, if you ask people around you right now how they pronounce this word, even right here at Mercyhurst, you might get more than one answer. You might get an ah sound, ah, college. That's what I use, ah, college. You might get someone from Buffalo or maybe Cleveland who has a little bit more of an ah sound, like college, college, college. Or you might get someone who has an ah sound, but it's a little bit more rounded with the mouth, like aw, college. So you can hear these differences. College, college, college. But they're all the same word. You know what I'm saying. But it's the vowel that distinguishes those dialects. Same thing with this next word. For the majority of you, I'm assuming you say roof. Well, I say roof now, but I didn't growing up. Where I grew up, the completely correct pronunciation, and I mean all the way to my college professors, was roof. So you have a roof on your house, and a tree has roots. So I say roof, and most of you say roof. So again, it's the vowel that distinguishes your dialect from mine. For me, the words boil and bowl do not sound the same. Boil, bowl. But in the South, when I attended graduate school in Georgia, there were many people who made those sound exactly alike. Both of them were pronounced bowl, bowl, bowl. We're going to boil some water and put it in the bowl. Something that happens around here with some of the dialects in this general tri-state area, some people make the sounds pull and pool sound alike. If you say them out loud to yourself right now, do they sound the same or do they sound different? If they sound different, what you're doing is changing the vowel. Then the last example is my name, which I would say Karen, but someone from Philly, Dr. McGurk, is an example, Dr. Josie McGurk, she would say Karen, Karen. So again, we're distinguishing our English dialects by different vowels. En español, se distinguen principalmente por las consonantes. So the complete reverse, what we just said about Spanish vowels is they never change, unlike what we just saw with English. If you have the letter A, it's always going to be A. You have the letter O, it's always going to be O. So there is no variation, virtually no variation, I should say, in how Spanish speakers of different dialects pronounce the vowels. It's the consonants where dialect differences come out. We will really dig into that when we discuss dialects in the final third of the course. But here you have the phrase that in my more or less Mexican Spanish would be yo me llamo Yolanda. So I have 3 examples of the sound y. Yo me llamo Yolanda. But if you went to Argentina, you might hear one of 2 things. Instead of yo me llamo Yolanda, you might hear yo me llamo Yolanda. Or you might hear yo me llamo Yolanda. That sounds very strange, but it would be completely normal in Argentina. There are also dialects where the sound y would be pronounced more like j. So yo me llamo Yolanda. With the y and the j, you can also get people who naturally just sort of toggle back and forth between the y and the j. So you could get yo me llamo Yolanda, or yo me llamo Yolanda, or yo me llamo Yolanda. It's called free variation. But anyway, it was interesting to me as a language geek that we distinguish our English dialects by vowels, but our Spanish dialects by consonants. The good news is, with this presentation, we're only talking about the vowels. So you've got A, E, I, O, U with no variations. Cuando hablamos en general de los problemas que tienen los anglohablantes en pronunciar las vocales del español, el problema más grande es pronunciar una vocal no acentuada como A, y se llama schwa. So for the International Phonetic Alphabet, there is a sound that's labeled schwa. It comes from German, and it's represented by the upside down E symbol. If this is brand new to you, you're only going to use a few new symbols. You're going to use a few symbols that go with English phonetics that don't belong in Spanish phonetics. But for comparison's sake, I do want you to know them. So this is an upside down E. We call it the schwa, and it's pronounced So if you think like the word duh, say the word duh, that's the schwa sound. Now when I talk about unaccented vowels, I'm not necessarily talking about written accent marks. I'm talking about what syllable in a particular word or phrase gets a little extra breath oomph. So when syllables have vowels that are not accented, they're not given a little extra oomph with your breath, our tendency as English speakers is to pronounce those vowels like the sound Why would we do that? Because it's normal in English. It's absolutely necessary in English. Here's some examples. For the first two words, I want you to think in English, completely in English, and then say these words in English. Maria, Maria. And Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania. That is natural native English. So look at the word Maria. There's an A in there in Spanish, but do you hear me pronounce the sound at all when I say Maria, Maria? No, both of those A's in English are pronounced which is the schwa, upside down E, Maria. Great in English. Pennsylvania. Now you've got two A's in this word, but the first one after the letter V is A, Pennsylvania, and then the last A is back to the schwa, Pennsylvania. But now think of those two words in Spanish, especially the first one. So instead of saying Maria like we would in English, let's say Maria. Try to just pronounce the A after me first. Maria, Maria. So both of those A's are pronounced identically. Now, if I'm looking at the word Pennsylvania and thinking Spanish, it'd be spelled a little bit differently, but it would be now pronounced Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania. So both the A after the V and the A at the end are sounds. So to contrast those two words quickly between English and Spanish, Maria, Maria, Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania. So when English speakers are learning Spanish, sometimes that schwa kicks in. So the word for library, biblioteca, should be pronounced with an at the end, biblioteca. But you might hear English speakers saying biblioteca, biblioteca. That is a rule that would work in English, but it doesn't work in Spanish. So what you want is the So after me, please repeat biblioteca, biblioteca. And then sometimes the schwa can actually get in the way of comprehension. So the word hable has an E sound in Spanish and habla an A sound in Spanish. But if a student who is learning Spanish just sort of says habla with that schwa sound, habla, if they say habla, first of all, that's not a word in Spanish. But if I'm trying to figure out what the student is trying to say, I can't tell if they're going for the subjunctive hable or the indicative habla. So it's really careful to keep our vowels pure and not reduce them to this sound. You're going to see that schwa a lot. Again, great in English. We need it in English, but not in Spanish. Empezamos con la vocal A. La vocal A. So some contrast with English, exactly what I just said. So I won't waste your time going over that again. But one problem with the A, we don't want to reduce it to schwa, so we went Maria instead of Maria. The other thing that we tend to do as English speakers is when we have a syllable that's stressed, has a little bit more emphasis, a little bit more air to it, we tend to elongate that vowel, but we don't want to do that in Spanish. So ideally, except for in some dialects, ideally in Spanish, you want each syllable to last the same amount of time when you speak them. So instead of saying antipático, like really emphasizing that accented you don't want to draw it out. Antipático. You do want to give it an extra volume because of the accent mark, but not draw it out. So you want antipático, antipático, instead of antipático, antipático. Now that one had a written accent. Posibilidad does not have a written accent, but if you hear me say it again in Spanish, you'll hear that the last syllable is accented with a little bit extra air. Posibilidad, posibilidad. So it has a little extra air, a little extra volume, but we don't want to say posibilidad and draw out that last sound, posibilidad. So the two problems with the sound don't make it a schwa and don't elongate a syllable that has that in it. Next up, the Spanish vowel I, written with a small I. So some contrast with English. Once again, we see schwa as the problem. We don't want to take an I in Spanish and reduce it to the sound the schwa. This happens especially when an I, the letter I, comes before an R. It's not always that situation, but many times. There's also the problem of cognates. For example, aspirin, aspirin. In the middle of that, it's like a aspirin, aspirin. So sometimes people want to transfer that to their Spanish and say aspirina, aspirina, instead of aspirina. Or the word for circle. Just say that out loud in English, circle. What vowel are you making before that R? Circle. It's just like a But in Spanish, we don't want circulo, like circle. We want círculo, círculo. So this is a matter of influence from English, making us use the schwa when we should just be keeping it a pure E sound. The other thing we don't want to do is take one of the sounds from English that is represented by the big I in the International Phonetic Alphabet of English. So if you haven't seen that before for English, I do want you to know this symbol. You already know the schwa, the upside down E. This is the big I. And the sound is I, like bit. So say after me, bit. We don't want to use that sound in Spanish. It never happens in Spanish. So instead of important, we want importante. So I is correct in English. I, important. But we don't want to transfer that to importante. We want I, importante. So try these words. You'll have to modify the spelling just a little bit, but let's pretend they're all English and listen for this I sound. So repeat after me. Important, invitation, Linda, Mexican, individual. You got a lot of that I. It does not exist in Spanish. So what I've written here phonetically is incorrect. Let's do it the correct way, which is I. So just repeat after me, I. And now the words importante, invitación, Linda, Mexicano, individuo, individuo. And the last thing, similar to one we saw before, if you have a syllable that is accented either by a written accent mark or with just a little bit of extra oomph from your air, you don't want to elongate it. So mis, we don't want mis, or civil instead of civil. The last three examples I have here is Spanish versus English. So I want you to just look at the English side first. So if you repeat these English words after me, ni, be, d. Again, now kind of feel how long it is that this vowel is lasting for you. So in English, repeat ni, be, d, like the name D. The Spanish counterparts should be shorter. So I'm just going to do the Spanish counterparts now and repeat after me, ni, be, d. And again, ni, be, d. So now let's contrast them back to back. So the only difference is not the sound you're making, it's how long you hold it out. So first the Spanish, then the English. Repeat after me, ni, Again, ni. And the second one, be. And the last example, di. They're pronounced the same, but we don't want to elongate it in Spanish like we do in English. On to the sound O. This can be problematic for some people, some English speakers, but it's a fairly easy problem to fix. So some contrast with English. First of all, we see the culprit schwa again, which is the sound. So with a state like Colorado, when we pronounce it in English, the first two examples of the letter O, the first one in English is actually going to be pronounced like an for as ka, Colorado. The second O in English is going to be pronounced like a schwa, this So kala. And then the last one is more or less the same between English and Spanish. But in English, the name of that state, repeat after me, Colorado. 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 In Spanish, every time you have the O, it's got to be a pure O. So this will feel a little bit silly, but repeat after me. O, 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 O. Colorado, Colorado, Colorado. So we want to get rid of the schwa. The other thing we want to avoid is to not turn that last O into the diphthong O. I could have written this OU or OW. I'm choosing to use OW just to make a point. So try this with me. O, O. Have you ever heard someone say this in Spanish? Yo hablo español. Yo hablo español. The problem with the yo and the hablo, the reason that sounds so gringo, is the person is changing that last O sound to the diphthong O. We don't want to do that. So now, I want you to pronounce the Spanish O, but make sure your lips stay exactly where they are and they don't close at the end of it. So just keep your lips frozen and say O, O, O. So hablo, hablo, instead of hablo, hablo. So that's one gringo mistake to avoid there. The other thing we need to do, and this comes from English influence, English interference, is we don't want to mix up the O with the A. So hombre and hambre are completely different words, but people tend to pronounce the first word like the second word. So you might hear an English speaker say hombre when they mean man, but to say tengo hambre versus tengo hombre, those are completely different things. So we don't want to confuse those two. Same thing with contar versus cantar. Many people want to pronounce that first word the same as the second, cantar. But we want to make the difference. So repeat after me and make it really clear. Contar, cantar. And then finally, this has to do with English interference too. When we have words that are almost identical in English, we want to take that English pronunciation and transfer it over to Spanish, where it doesn't belong. So let's say these words in English first. So don't think too much about it, just speak in English after me. Doctor, hospital, conversation. Now let's look a little bit more carefully. When we say that first word in English, it's doctor. The first O is actually an sound in English, and the second O is the schwa We don't want either one of those sounds in Spanish. We want O. So first, after me, O. Another word, doctor. One more time, doctor. The next one, we're so used to saying in English, hospital. But notice that that letter O is pronounced like an A sound, We don't want hospital, we want O. So again with me, O. Hospital. And the final example there, in English, conversation. That first O is pronounced like in English, completely correctly in English. So try after me, conversation. But we don't want that in Spanish. So after me, O, conservación. Finally, our last vowel sound, U. Some problems that you might encounter as an English speaker or when you're teaching English speakers is if you have a Q, U, you want to understand that that U, in this case, doesn't make any sound at all. All it's doing is hanging out with the letter Q to give it its merit. So tranquil, quill, you can hear the U and the I in there, tranquil, but we don't want it here. Instead of tranquilize, we want tranquilizar. So in the Spanish verb tranquilizar, the U is silent. So U after a Q is silent. You don't want tranquilizar, but just tranquilizar. So repeat after me the correct way, tranquilizar, tranquilizar. So there's no U in that at all. Our culprit schwa comes up again here, like the word suspense. Say that in English, suspense. That first vowel, kind of feel out what sound you're making for that first vowel. Suspense, suspense. That's the schwa. Great in English. We don't want it in Spanish. We want u, suspenso. So try this with me. U, suspenso, suspenso. And the last problem that you could have as an English speaker is to put a Y sound, a Y, where it doesn't belong. And this really occurs frequently with cognates. Again, we have problems with English interference. So in English, we want to say university. You want that Y. Say that after me in English, university. And then the name of the country gets pronounced Uruguay instead of Uruguay. Both of those examples, you need to get rid of the Y sound, Y, and you just want U. So try this after me, U, universidad, universidad. And the next one after me, U, Uruguay. I don't know why, but that's one of my favorite words in Spanish. Try it again, Uruguay. So in both of these cases, you don't want the Y. You don't want Universidad and Uruguay, but Universidad, Uruguay. And then there's the same thing about not elongating the vowel if it comes in an accented syllable. So we don't have to go through all of these. But the first example, luz in Spanish versus luz in English. Without thinking about it too much, say the second word in English, luz, luz. Now say the Spanish word for light, that first one there, repeat after me, luz, luz. So the idea is in Spanish, you're not going to elongate that vowel, luz versus lose. That's the least of the problems though, the elongating. It's the first three that are the main issues with oo. So now that you've done all of your vowel sounds, let's practice them. So this is where you really need to get ready to say these out loud after me. So you're really paying attention to what you hear and what's going on in your mouth and what comes out of your mouth. So the first one we're going to start with is ah. So I'd like you to repeat after me, really concentrating on the ah. First of all, we're just going to say that vowel sound and feel what's going on with the mouth. So even though you might feel a little silly, just repeat after me, ah, ah. Now keeping that same feeling, ah, let's pronounce these words, concentrating in the ah. After me, angular, angular. And going across, altura, altura. And make sure the beginning A and the last A are identical, altura. The next one after me, Maria, Maria. Again, both of those A's identical. We don't want any Maria. One more time, Maria. And the next one, animal, animal. And then España, España. And finally, instead of Alabama with this ah that we get from English, we just want ah, ah, ah. So try this after me, ah, ah, ah. And now Alabama. Make sure all of those are identically pronounced. Alabama, Alabama. Now let's go on to the next one, my problem vowel, A. So you don't want like in beso, but you don't want A like in beso. It's got to be somewhere in between. So this is my trial. This is the one that gives me problems. Let's see how you do. So after me, A. Beso, beso. Meses, meses. Este, este. Francés, francés. Preposición, preposición. México, México. And the next one, Y. So just do this after me. E, E, E. Do that again. E, E, E. So no matter where it happens in a word, anytime you have the letter I, it's going to say E. So after me, please. Adivinar, adivinar. Dignidad, dignidad. Inicial, inicial. Take this next one slowly. Civilización, civilización. Now a little bit more quickly. Civilización, civilización. And going on after me, incidente, incidente. And finally, individual, individual. Now the O. So you don't want to close your lips at the end of this. You don't want an O. You just want O. So your lips are going to kind of hang a little bit more open than you would like them to. But just repeat after me. O. O. And the words, repeat. Modo. Modo. Producto. Producto. Roberto. Roberto. Ortográfico. Ortográfico. Oportunidad. And make sure that first sound is not an ah, like opportunity, but o. So after me, o. Oportunidad. Oportunidad. And finally, observatorio. Observatorio. That would be another case where your English could influence that, and you'd want to say observatorio, like observatory, but we want o. One more time, observatorio. Then we want u. So try this, u, u, u. And going on, Cuba, Cuba, puro, puro, puridad, puridad. Now in English that would be purity. Do you hear the Y? Purity, but we just want u in Spanish. So one more time, puridad. And going on, película. Not película, but just u, película. So after me, película, película. Regular, regular. Not the regular from English, but one more time, regular. And then finally, one of my favorite words, Uruguay, Uruguay. Okay. Different people have different issues with vowels. Mine is the A. A lot of students have issues with the O. So whatever your problem vowel might be, if you have one, you can just do a little extra practice with that particular vowel. Now the last phrase I have up here involves all of these vowels together, but I want to read it with you slowly first so you are comfortable with the words before you really concentrate on the vowels. So repeat after me, el doctor. Now remember both of those O's are O. One more time, el doctor. Now repeat, que busco, que busco. And then repeat, no está, no está. And then en su oficina, en su oficina. And then finally, sino el hospital, sino el hospital. Now let's do it in two parts. Repeat after me, el doctor que busco no está. El doctor que busco no está. And then the second half after me, en su oficina sino el hospital. En su oficina sino el hospital. Now the whole sentence, and I'll make sure to give you enough time. You don't have to speak it very quickly, but concentrate on your vowels. El doctor que busco no está en su oficina sino el hospital. Okay, one more time after me. El doctor que busco no está en su oficina sino el hospital. Good. Now this one's going to be some fun. There is a song in Spanish with the phrase Cuando Fernando VII usaba pantalón, which basically in Spanish just means when Ferdinand VII wore pants, which seems ridiculous, but we really don't care about the meaning in this activity right now. What we're going to do is something really silly, but something that will help you focus just on the vowels and making sure every time you pronounce a vowel, it's that pure sound that never changes no matter where it is in a word. So I'd like you to slowly, after me, repeat the phrase as it is seen here. Cuando Fernando VII usaba pantalón. And one more time, a little bit more naturally. Cuando Fernando VII usaba pantalón. Okay, as you can see, this phrase has all of the vowels that we use in Spanish, but now we're going to isolate the vowels and practice them one by one. So for example, let's start with the vowel ah. And before you attempt this ridiculousness, just make this ah sound. Ah. Now feel where your mouth and lips are exactly, and do it one more time. Ah. Now, keeping your mouth exactly the same throughout this. For the vowel, repeat this after me, first slowly and then more quickly. Kanda, Fernanda, Saptama, Asaba, Pantalan. And then more naturally, after me, Kanda, Fernanda, Saptama, Asaba, Pantalan. Sounds silly. It's going to get even better. Now, what if every verb was an e sound? I had to change a little bit of the spelling in the word cuando to make it match phonetically. So after me, slowly first, Kende, Fernende, Septeme, Esebe, Pentelen. Now here, remember, you don't want an e, but you don't want an a either, just e. And make sure that every single instance of e in this phrase feels the same, as well as sounds the same. So now, more natural speed. Kende, Fernende, Septeme, Esebe, Pentelen. You do it. All right. Now, again with the modified spelling. Try this sound. You'll wonder what the heck I'm doing, but anyway, humor me. E, E, E. All right, now every vowel in this is the E sound. So after me, slowly. Kindi, Fernindi, Siptimi, Isibi, Pintilin. And now a little bit more quickly. Kindi, Fernindi, Siptimi, Isibi, Pintilin. Good. How about this one? O. Now this is where it's really important to make sure that your lips don't round after you make the O sound, because you don't want that diphthong O. So just don't let your lips close. So being careful not to do that. Just keep your mouth straight as it is, no lip rounding at the end, and just say O. O. Okay, after me, slowly. Kondo, Fornondo, Sopto, Mo, Osobo, Pontolon. And now you. And now at a natural speed, Kondo, Fornondo, Soptomo, Osobo, Pontolon. Now here's my favorite one. It even looks silly as well as sounds silly. So after me, at a little bit slow speed, Kundu, Fornundu, Suptumu, Usubu, Puntulun. It looks funny, it sounds funny, it feels funny, but now at a little bit more natural speed, Kundu, Fornundu, Suptumu, Usubu, Puntulun. Okay, now for a challenge. I'm going to read each one of them individually, but pretty quickly. And I want you to say them after me as quickly as you can. Kandar Fernanda Saptama Asaba Pantalan. And one more time. Kanda Fernanda Saptama Asaba Pantalan. And now with the E. Kende Fernende Septeme Esebe Pentelen. And again, even more quickly. Kende Fernende Septeme Esebe Pentelen. And now I. Kindi Fernindi Siptimi Isibi Pintilin. And even more quickly, Kindi Fernindi Siptimi Isibi Pintilin. Okay, now the O. Kondo for nondo soptomo osobo pontolon. And even more quickly, kondo for nondo soptomo osobo pontolon. And the u, kundu for nundu suptumu usubu puntulun. And even more quickly, kundu for nundu suptumu usubu puntulun. So this is something you can do on your own time, drive your roommates or your friends crazy, but it is a good way to really isolate and practice the vowels. Here are some phrases that I'd like you to repeat after me just to perfect those vowel sounds a little bit more. So after me, Amalia y Ana hablan con Amanda. And one more time, Amalia y Ana hablan con Amanda. And the next one, Pepe es enemigo de Ernesto. Pepe es enemigo de Ernesto. And now, try this first, E, 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 E. So everything's going to be an E, E, E. Ignacio me invitó a invertir con Imelda. Ignacio me invitó a invertir con Imelda. So just take special care with that third word since the interference from English could come in with invite. But we don't want invite, we want I. So invitar or invitó in this case. Okay, next one. O. Onofrio observa las operaciones de la oficina. Now, here we have at least 3 words that could get into trouble with a little bit of influence, bad influence from English. So we've got observe in English and operations and office, but we don't want that ah sound anywhere near these O instances. So pay particular attention to that. So after me, Onofrio observa las operaciones de la oficina. And 5, try the u. Okay, Humberto vuela a Uruguay urgentemente. And again, Humberto vuela a Uruguay urgentemente. Okay, now we have a combination of the vowels, so just pay attention and repeat after me. La historia de los Estados Unidos es complicada. And again, la historia de los Estados Unidos es complicada. And the next, no podemos ir con ustedes porque hace calor. And again, no podemos ir con ustedes porque hace calor. And the next, las mujeres siempre nos invitan a sus fiestas. And again, las mujeres siempre nos invitan a sus fiestas. And 9. Es importante entender un poco de la cultura. And again, es importante entender un poco de la cultura. And finalmente, número 10. Voy a practicar mi pronunciación con un amigo. And one more time. Voy a practicar mi pronunciación con un amigo. Good. And with this activity, this practice, along with any other practice like this during the semester, you can pause the recording if you need just a little bit more time to repeat after me. And that brings us to just a few review things that you can look over. If you have any questions about these, however, just let me know.